Right.
Thank you.
It's interesting that the next segment of Inside Sources, I'm going to be engaging a professor who has done a lot of work on the police institution in Nigeria, and I'm going to ask him, why we have this tension between Nigerians and the police. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources as we continue the conversation on the future of our great country. Today, I have an eminent historian, a leading academic in this country, who is also the leading historian on Nigerian police force, is a professor of history from Obafemi Awolowo University. I'd like to welcome Professor Kemi Rotimi to Inside Sources. Prof, you're welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much, Laulu.
Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
Very good. Now, looking at the amount of work that you have done on Nigerian police, quite, very broad and commendable. I wanted to ask you that if you look at where the relationship between the Nigerian police force and the Nigerian people are today, what do you think has to happen for us to have the kind of mutual trust between the Nigerian police and the Nigerian people?
Now, mutual trust between the police and the people, does that exist anywhere in the world? No. So I'll put it this way.
Okay.
What policing is all about, and I insist that I'm on terra firma. Policing is about investing one man with state authority to affect the freedom of another. What does that mean? By the nature of what they do, which is the prevention of crime, and when that may not be the case, the apprehension of the criminal and bringing the criminal to justice, and the maintenance of law and order.
Right.
When you look at what is packed into the primary duties of the police, they are not duties that make the people at the other end of police activity readily want to embrace them. But it does not necessarily have to be conflictual. They may not be bosom friends, but they don't have to be sworn enemies. Now, but in the course of implementing the duties of the police, discretion is the very first fundamental. And it is not always that you have police officers exercising that discretion. Discretion now as to how best to go about the duty at hand. Oftentimes, if it's about crowd control, that's even a very risky business, because there is no way the police who have been invited to take charge of a rowdy situation can tell how very organized and well-intentioned those among the crowd, people among the crowd are. But even in the regular, the charge of their regular duties, take what I've said, prevention of crime.
Right.
Prevention of crime means that unreasonable suspicion of a criminal just walking by, the police officer detailed to police a stretch of street. Excuse me? Yes. Can I check your bag, like they still do now? And then the next thing is, what do you mean? What is in my bag? That's not the way it should be. If you're reasonably sure of yourself, there should be no problem. You want to oblige. And when he may have checked, there's nothing incriminating, thank you very much, sir, you may go. In other words, you have met the policeman. The policeman has shown that he had cause or has cause to suspect that there is something odd. He requested to, quote unquote, frisk you. You have obliged. End of story. But if we take it to what we know about normally, young men are particularly vulnerable in the matter of encounters with the police. by their dressing, by their conduct, they make it look like they are looking for trouble. And then these days, you see this thing they call backpack, which has become like accoutrement for grown bow adolescents to early adult young men.
Even people of my age,
yes,
some of them wear backpacks too.
Yes. So, and because that thing can contain anything from what is normal and decent to what is abhorrent, their hemp, loud, any of these drugs. And because the policeman is trained to be permanently suspicious, it's in the DNA of the policeman to suspect individual. So the relationship cannot always be so. But let's come to Nigeria and why is it, and I will explain the Nigerian peculiarity.
Before you do that,
yes.
I just want to make a repost so that you can also accommodate it in your response. So when I talk about the mutuality, I'm not saying that they have to be dandy, but we've had a lot of excesses, that we have seen from the Nigerian police. It led to NSAS in 2020. You described part of it. You have situations where people will go to the police stations and, the way they are treated, they are even though they are suspects, you've had situations where the police wants to arrest somebody, they get there, they don't find the guy, they pick the wife, they pick the son, there are a lot in this country. That's what I talk about mutuality. So the people don't see. They don't see the police as their friend. Now, we're going to come back to other issues that I also want you to address. But I wanted to explain to you that when I talk about the mutuality, I'm not saying that they have to be men Fridays. No, but a certain level of decency and mutual respect that we have seen in other crimes that we used to see in this country, by the way, at some time. That's what I mean.
You see, for those who romanticize the past, yesterday always look like the better period. That is not true. I'm a historian. And when you look at these things, and what I'm going to jump into to give you the example now, you see the police now talk about their welfare, talk about their bearing, and looks like, oh, this is horrible. But I think always been good. I have a report, 1977 report, undated, with MD Sufu as IGP. The title of that document is Committee to Look into the Welfare Challenges of the Inspectorate and Other Ranks and How to Ameliorate Them. If you put 2024 as the date,
that wouldn't be different.
You think, oh, yes. Now, I'm talking about 1977. 1977. How many Nigerians will believe what I'm going to say now? That as far back as that time, babies were being made on the back of disused vehicles at Obalende. That's the flagship police station in Nigeria, in Lagos.
When you say babies are being made, you mean?
Babies are being made, police officers deployed to Lagos,
right,
but lacking accommodation and sleeping in disused vehicles within the premises. Their wives came around and they were making babies there.
Okay. Oh, wow.
1777. Now, if you say that about now, say, oh, yes. But there used to be a time in this country, and then you laugh. Romanticizing the past does not quite work with some of us. So the testy relationship between the citizens and the police has always been there. I have a perspective on it, i.e., when the British went out to govern, they went with two philosophies of policing. One was for likes to police likes. Sorry, for strangers to police strangers. Then the other one for likes to police likes. The one that was for strangers to police strangers was the one that undergirded the creation of the Nigeria Police Force, what we know today as Nigeria Police Force. The one for likes to police likes was the one that undergirded the permission to have native authority, later local government police forces in Nigeria and elsewhere in West Africa. That one about strangers policing strangers is that you constitute the force armed, but you don't deploy them in the areas where, from which they have originated. You take them to places where there will be no emotionalism when it was time to act. And because colonial rule was unacceptable to most of the conquered, there were usually frequent pacification raids. That's what you find in the fires. But as a Nigerian, as an adult, as a scholar, you laugh. Pacification. Pacifying who? Over what? You have come from wherever, you have taken his land, you have imposed yourself on him, and he's saying this is unacceptable. Then you are badgering him, using forces that you have recruited that were not known, and then the pacification raids. Now, for the MPF, for instance, as early as before 1910, there were Yoruba police officers, Nigerian government police officers in Kano. And the man, one of those, the makers of Nigeria, H.R. Palmer, was an administrative officer in Kano at the time. These were the people who vigorously campaigned for the creation of native authority police forces through the appropriation of pre-existing palace organizations with police duties. That's a topic for another time, maybe because of our conversation. Now, so when you use strangers to do that kind of thing, and that is why up to tomorrow, if there is a riot in Osogbo, if you are deploying Nigerian police personnel, you're not going to take people from Southwest. No. Largely the component will be people from outside of the Southwest. If there are in Southwesterners, very few. Out of 100, maybe you have 5. Because when they go there...
So that goes right against the grain of community policing. Yes,
I leave that one alone yet. I'll tell you that. Because what Nigeria Force Headquarters chiefs used to talk about community policing, if I call it a scam, I won't be too wrong. But I won't use that label.
Can you explain that?
I will. What is called, for so very many years, mouthing and touting, community policing. The noise will be deafening whenever there was donor agency money. The moment the donor agency money dried up, the noise will go down. In the last 2 years, have you noticed that they have not had much of community policing? The Nigerian police force, as constituted, cannot do community policing. I insist. And why? The rapid turnover of staff, the staff deployment situation of the Nigeria police force does not conduce to community policing.
And it's the idea that you talk about of these strangers
policing strangers.
So that's still the doctrinary of the Nigerian police.
Today. Now, community policing, as a matter of fact, is not a program. It is a philosophy that should undergird, or you build it into policing while training personnel.
So that has not been happening.
How can that happen? You need to know the origin of community policing.
So when we are talking about community policing, we are just basically deceiving ourselves.
Deceiving ourselves because the man who started community policing, Mr. Tafa Balogun, may Allah rest his soul, caught wind of the thing at a point when he was in America. Sold it to President Obasanjo, who fell for it. And Mr. Balogun was a very brilliant man. First class brain. Otherwise, challenges were later. Fantastic brain. And a super cop.
That's now IGP Balogun.
Tafa Balogun. Yeah. Now, he caught wind of this thing, sold it to Mr. President. Mr. President bought it, and then they went for it. But it was an ill-digested, poorly understood phenomenon. The truth of the matter is that what you call community policing was what the NA police of my orientation, my in-depth study, was about.
And that's the Native Authority Police.
Native Authority Police of the Northern region and the Western region.
But is that not more humane? Is that not more community focused? Wouldn't that actually conduce to more mutuality between the people and the police? That, in your view?
Not just in my view. Perfect. Perfect while it lasted. Now, especially in the Emirates of Northern Nigeria.
The other thing I wanted to talk about with you is the funding. So you have a very historical depth of these issues. Part of the problem that I see with Nigerian police is the issue of the funding, which affects both their welfare and their operations. The experience that a lot of Nigerians get is that when they go to the DPO, to report a crime, the DPO tells them that, look, do you have a car? And they say, well, what about those? They don't even have money to fuel their cars. At times, they have as little as 50,000 naira, to run the entire DPO office for a month. In a country, Prof, where our federal legislators are running a 20 million naira monthly operation cost, are we ready as a people to have a decent police force or not, in your view?
Now, funding of the police, they have never been properly funded. Never. And again, take a little into history. As I've said, pre-colonial rule, you had those who did police duties being members of within the royal household, but from the lowest rung of the ladder. They were drawn from slaves. Do you know that the tendency to treat a policeman up to today as if you were a slave is still in the mentality of many people?
And that's the problem that we have as a people.
Yes.
Are we ready? And this goes back to our elites generally. Are we ready to actually, do we aspire to have a nation of free people or not?
Police have always been treated as poor cousins. And I'll put it this way. It grew worse after the Civil War, when the military appropriated police duties and by extension, police budget. The little that was getting to the police was cornered by the leadership elite. I'm opening my mouth wide.
Yeah, of course.
Now, to say this, that report that I referred to earlier comes in here.
Interesting point. We have to find time, when next you're in Abuja, please let us know to continue this conversation. I really like, what I'm hearing at the last point, and it just shows, that indeed you are a true scholar, and you have in-depth understanding. Thank you so much for coming to Inside Sources, and thank you for the great work that you have done, Nigerian police, and thank you for your voice.
Prepare for my interactive forum when it happens.
I'll be part of it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because you have to be one of those to speak on the first day.
I'll be part of it. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, we believe and we know that Nigeria will prevail because we will not relent. That day will come. Thank you for watching. My name is Laolu Akonde. I'll see you at the next edition.